Speaking of nobody coming to save us, Rick Mercer, all of my Canadians over there constantly tell me, you need to watch Rick Mercer talking to Americans. A lot of the Rick Mercer talking to American videos are really old, like 15 years old, and we are going to watch some of those and react to some of those soon. But I thought that this was a very good introduction. This video right here is Rick Mercer talking to Americans, but it's an interview with Rick Mercer, and he's talking about Trump talking about the California, or I'm sorry, I wish California would be the 51st, or part of Canada, about Canada becoming the 51st state of America. I don't know how to function here. So this is Rick Mercer talking to Americans, 51st state rhetoric.
It's what I do. I've done 3 stand-up tours. I've done other national tours. It's something I like doing very much. But I think the time is right for this. These are very interesting times.
And if you don't know this, Rick Mercer, he's like, he did Jordan Klepper, but to all Americans, and also a lot more highbrow. Like, he is a comedian, but like he just kind of like asks questions that Americans could be able to answer or should be able to answer, and he just kind of exposes almost everybody. He's obviously not going after Democrats or Republicans. He's just talking to Americans, period. And I did watch a little bit of one of the Talking American videos, and to be honest, I think he could get me as well. But just to give you a little backstory on who this guy is, this is Rick Mercer, and he is a stand-up comedian, and I believe he worked for the CBC on his show Talking to Americans.
Times that Canada is in right now. It's for the first time. These are very interesting times that Canada is in right now. It's for the first time, another nation is threatening our sovereignty. There's a lot of confusion out there. Our greatest trading partner is suddenly no longer our friend, being very aggressive. That said, that has permeated almost every aspect of our lives, but it actually hasn't impacted my act at all. Like, I'm doing the same act. I decided a long time ago that everything I do was going to be celebrating the country. And I'm not saying that's the only way forward, because a lot of comedy comes from tearing things down. That's just not my lane. I chose to go a different lane. So I've always celebrated the country, and I think people are in the mood for that now. And I'm really looking forward to getting out there and doing my part on the road. Talking to Americans, it really was one joke over and over again, but it was a joke that Canadians really enjoyed. But I'll tell you the truth, the first time I did it, and it was a total fluke, it was just something that happened at the end of a shooting day. I had no idea that it would turn into the segment that it became, or the TV special that came about as a result. And I always felt a little guilty.
Dude, this is like, you can parallel this with Jordan Klepper, dude. You can definitely parallel this to exactly what Jordan Klepper says about going to the Trump rallies, and how it all kind of started with just thinking as a joke. Same reason that this YouTube channel started, that I just came on here thinking that I was just making jokes about people that had some wild ass conspiracy theorists about all kinds of things, and how it just became such a bigger thing. There's definitely a lot of parallel here.
Because I always thought I was relying on the kindness of Americans, because I would often say, hey, do you have a moment for television? They'd say, nope. And I'd say, for Canadian television? They'd go, oh, of course. Like, there was this incredible feeling of goodwill and generosity towards Canada as a whole. Now, these were different times. Nobody ever saw that in the United States. So I always felt a little bit guilty, but I was aware that, by and large, Americans knew nothing about Canada, but they did know we were the neighbors, and they wanted to be only generous and kind to the neighbors. And that has clearly changed somewhat. People are very suspicious of Canada. I think Americans are more suspicious of everyone. And both inside their country, their neighbors, and then outside of their country as well. I don't think you could do that segment today. I mean, there's a million people doing very successful man or woman on the street segments in the States and all over the world. No one's doing anything quite like what I was doing.
I would love to see him do a Talking to Americans right now. I think that would be absolute gold. Absolute gold. I think you should come with security, but I think it would be absolute gold.
Many people did it after. Jay Leno used to do it. I think it would. Yeah, I don't think you could do it now.
Yeah.
Also, people are more. I can't believe I've reached a point where I'm old enough to say, well, it was a different time, but it was a kinder, gentler time. When people saw me, a young man at the time, in a suit and the big camera and the camera operator and my producer with a clipboard, they never thought in a million years this could be a comedy show. They just thought we're the news, and the news is to be trusted.
Don't leave the door open.
They were very different times. Well, I always thought Canadians were too quick to look down our nose at America in many ways. We were a bit holier than thou for a little too long. And I don't think Americans were aware of that because they're just not that in tune to our thinking. But there was a bit of that in Canada, and when you do talk about the Canadian identity, if you want to have that conversation about what it means to someone to be Canadian, you really got to dig, because the first thing the first thing that 9 out of 10 Canadians will do is they'll start talking about how we're different than Americans, which is no way to define yourself. But that's our default. Well, we're not them. And that's been my life's work in many ways. This whole what does it mean to be a Canadian thing, and what are the similarities when you go from region to region. What's happening in the country now? People are standing in the middle of drugstores Googling what's a Canadian toothpaste. And they're reading labels in the ways that they've never read before. And they're making choices about whether they'll eat a kiwi fruit. That's new. But I think it's always been there. Canadians...
Yeah, it was Pinkerbell that just said it, right? Congratulations to Donald Trump for inspiring a historic rise in patriotism in Canadians. Like, there are things that I've said it before, there are silver linings to Donald Trump being the president. Most of them are really painful lessons that Americans are learning, and really painful lessons that Canadians are learning and the rest of the world are learning right now. And, one of them is that Canadians are learning that they can subsist without America. Like, not that they ever thought, oh, we need America, but I think that for a long time they enjoyed their relationship with America. Most of the Canadians that I see over there on the Funny Clips channel, they all kind of wish that things were the way they were under every other president other than Donald Trump. Most of them are rooting for us. Most of them want America to overcome this bullshit. They're just kind of they're done. They're over, trying to help, just like most of us are over trying to help, MAGA Republicans come back to reality. Canadians are also, very much over trying to get Americans to recognize that Donald Trump is a horrific human being and the worst, not president, worst leader in global history. I mean, there is, plenty of people out there that did horrific crimes to humanity when it comes to genocide, or when it comes to physical stuff. Donald Trump, the effect that he's having on the globe right now, economically, with the Strait of Hormuz being closed, economically, and as far as humanitarian aids go, when you come to Doge cutting USAID, in my opinion, he is causing more harm to the globe than almost any other world leader that has ever existed. He's top 5 at least.
We're a proud country. There's no doubt about it. We've never beat the drum and said we're number one. And I don't think that that's because we're self-deprecating, although I believe self-deprecating, it's a wonderful trait in an individual, and it's a great trait in a country. But I think we've never had to, in order for Canada to be good, Denmark doesn't have to be bad.
Exactly.
And that is kind of unique to Canadians. If you ask Canadians who has the best trains in the world, they'll probably say, oh, Europe. But if you ask Americans who has the best trains in the world, most of them will say America.
Yeah.
Even though they've seen a Tom Cruise movie with the bullet trains in there, they still don't, well, no, we have the best ones.
Yeah, American exceptionalism, 100%. That's the insanity. And then if you dare to say, no, we don't, then people like MAGA Republicans will stand up and say, oh, if you don't like it, then get out of my country. Like the MAGA hypocrisy is both that things are extremely bad, but also we're the greatest, right? We're the number one economy ever, but also it's terrible. Except for now that Trump is president, now the economy that they claimed that was terrible before, that now is actually worse than it was before, is actually now the best economy. They just don't they don't live in reality. They don't reside in reality.
If you're in my business, if you're creating TV shows, if you're doing one-man shows, which I used to do in my early 20s, if you're writing books,
why do you hate America?
Scripts,
exactly.
It really helps if you love your subject matter. And my subject matter has always been my country. And I'm not saying it's perfect, not by a long shot. It's just that's someone else's lane.
Yeah.
I'm just, right now, it's all about celebrating. Well, I've always had a plan. And the plan was always get my own TV show. And anyone who goes into comedy or television, that's the dream. And then I was very fortunate to achieve that dream. And it wasn't my first TV show. I did a bunch of TV shows before I got that. And then when I stopped that, because it was the perfect TV show for me, I had no interest in any TV after that. And so it just made sense to write books. It just, what else was I going to do? I was sitting in my cabin in Newfoundland. There's only so much you can do in a shed.
Oh, he's from Newfoundland.
You grow a few potatoes, you write some books. The tours, I've always enjoyed doing the tours, and it's just a matter of timing. I haven't done one in a while, a stand-up tour, so it's just worked out. It has always made sense if you are a English language performer in any genre to go to the United States. That's just the reality. It is the biggest entertainment industry in the world.
We are the biggest
second
consumers,
now, but the biggest English language industry in the world, and it's right there. And so it only makes sense. And this is why so many great Canadian comedians and actors and musicians and producers and filmmakers and everything else have done well in the United States. I would never, ever in a million years criticize anyone for doing that. That's, that just makes perfect sense. Also, that's where the opportunity is. There's not a lot of real estate in this country.
Yeah, we're huge consumers. That's what we are. That was our place after World War II, was to be the world police, okay? And that's why we dumped so much money into our military. And also, China was to be the manufacturer for the world, and we were to be the consumers, and that's what we do. And so, I think I've always thought it was great that people come here to enrich their careers as entertainers, to really find a platform for the music they make or the movies they make or whatever it is. And that is something to be proud of. And this is why I think that Americans oftentimes are just being gaslit, well, always being gaslit by Donald Trump, to be honest. But oftentimes in this scenario, you're being gaslit because it's like, no, your part in this world is to work your ass off and make the country better through your blood, sweat, and tears, and then you die, and then you should just be happy that you did something for this country. That's not really what it is. We are a global economy. We are, the consumers for the globe. You send your stuff here and we will buy it. You send your best people here and we will support them, and we will make them rich. We will make them famous. The problem, of course, with all of that is that, if you don't take care of the middle class, you don't take care of the upper middle class, the lower middle class, the impoverished in this country, well, we're the ones that consume. The billionaires, those guys, have, they buy up assets, they buy up resources, they use their money for voice in government, or they buy a yacht or some other shit. But if you want to talk about the people that really legitimately support like the entertainment industry, that's us. And that is something that you can be proud of, is that like you help make other people's lives better by, buying their products, supporting their literature, supporting their music, supporting their acting endeavors. Those are all really important things.
In terms of, if you're that kid who wants his own TV show and it's 2010, if you look at the networks in Canada, you could easily go, well, I can have my own TV show because that Mercer guy got it. Like, there's only so much real estate. And I was fortunate enough to have a piece of that real estate for a while. I mean, the industry is always changing. Everything is changing. Do you know what's never going to go away? Live theater. It's never going away because there's nothing like it. And I don't care what you watch on your phone or what you do, you know, on all your devices. Live theater will never go away. Live comedy will never go away. And yes, we live in an era where a kid in Sudbury can start doing comedy with his cell phone and become a superstar, and that's great. And then he can go out and tour if he wants, but it's just two different things. And there are people out there who aren't that familiar with seeing stand-up because maybe they don't go to clubs, for example. But my fans, a lot of them, they like the idea of going to a theater, big fancy room, and seeing a great night of comedy. And you know, most of them, if the ones who've never done it before will walk out and go, their minds will be blown by great stand-up.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm talking about other stand-ups, not me, by the way. But yeah, there's nothing like it.
Good thing I didn't drink right there. You know, I think the best thing he said there, well, there's lots of really good things that he said there, but one of the things that I really enjoyed that he said there was, "This is my lane." You guys heard me talk about this before when Benny comes in here and yells at me. And I love Benny. And Benny's lane is to yell at people. So she's just doing her job. Really appreciate when Benny comes in. And she yells, you F football, F Netflix, get out and get your feet on the ground and yell at some people and make a difference. That's all really important, but that's Benny's lane. My lane has been the same lane, and I've let people kind of push me in different directions because I feel like a real responsibility to help where I can. But where I'm the most helpful is when I'm residing in my lane, and that is making fun of some of this stuff, mocking it, showing people how ridiculous it is to be a Trump supporter. To show people that they're not crazy, that most of us do agree that this is insanity and it doesn't make any sense. That is my lane. And, occasionally I step outside of my lane for a little bit. I try to do some serious stuff, and it just, there's plenty of serious people out there. There's Brian Tyler Cohen, there's, Hassan, there's David Pakman, there's, Kyle Kalinske. There's tons of people that do real good reporting on whatever your specific choice of leftism is, right? But in my lane, there's only some specific people, and our job isn't to come out here and show people how the 14th Amendment affects something, or our job is to show how crazy it is that these people are so illiterate that they, talk about the Constitution but don't know what the 14th Amendment is about. That's what we're here for. You've got to have your lane, and that's, why you have I've managed businesses for a very long time. When I'm managing people, I don't say this is where I'm going to put you and you just have to be here, right? What I do is I put people in positions that I think they present as being good at. And then I watch them and I see what they're good at and what they're not good at. And then if I'm wrong originally at what I think they're going to be good at, I put them in a different place. And I find the spot that they're good at and I put them in that spot. And that's how they're the most functioning. That's how they're the most efficient. That's how they're the best. If you look at the military works with, the Air Force, the Army, the Navy, the National Guard, the Marines. Each one is good at something different. Everybody has, similar elements, but each one is really good at a specific thing. And within each military wing, there's, individual groups that are even better. The Rangers, the SEALs, this is very important because when you have a movement that's as large as what, you see in politics on the left or right, you need to have people that are good at different things. And I don't expect this man to go out and preach on the pulpit about left-wing activism and getting out on the street, boots on the ground, shouting through a megaphone at politicians. What I want to see from him is I want to see him making fun of the things that can be mocked, that can show people exactly how ridiculous and insane this is. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please like and subscribe and hit that notification bell, and check out that video on the screen now.